The stars stretched endlessly across the black sky, each one a cold spark in the infinite void. On the surface of the Lithurian research station orbiting the planet Selenes, Kalira stood at the edge of the observation deck, her slender fingers pressed lightly against the glass. Her violet eyes reflected the constellations above, but her mind was elsewhere. She was not meant to think of such things. Lithurians were trained from birth to suppress unnecessary emotions. Logic ruled every decision, every movement, every thought. Feelings were a weakness, a flaw that could be exploited in the cold calculations of their society. And yet, despite all her training, something deep in Kalira's chest stirred, an ache she could not name. Kalira turned from the stars when the station's communicator chimed softly. "Kalira, your transport to the human colonies is ready," said the familiar, calm voice of her superior, Commander Lyran. "Diplomatic protocols must be followed precisely. Do not make mistakes." The mission to the human colony was simple in theory: observe, collect data, and maintain peaceful relations. Humans fascinated Lithurians. They were unpredictable, emotional, and often illogical, a species so unlike her own that they felt almost alien even among stars. Kalira had studied them for years, analyzing their patterns and habits, noting their fears and strengths, and yet she had never seen one up close until now. The transport shuttle hummed as it landed on the bustling human spaceport. Kalira stepped onto the platform, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. The air smelled different here, warmer, charged with energy she could not identify. Humans moved around her with chaotic purpose, laughing, shouting, and gesturing wildly. Some glanced at her, curiosity flickering across their faces. Few would ever have dared approach a Lithurian so openly. Then she saw him. He stood near a console, bent over calculations and schematics, dark hair falling into his eyes. Even from a distance, she noticed the way he carried himself, not with arrogance but with quiet determination. His movements were precise but not controlled the way Lithurians moved. There was a freedom in him that both unsettled and fascinated her, and when their eyes met, everything changed. It was only a single glance. He did not speak to her, did not approach. He simply looked, with a curiosity so pure it cut through the barriers she had spent her entire life building. Kalira felt a warmth rise within her chest, a forbidden sensation that made her stomach flutter and her heart race. Her hands, which she had thought steady, trembled ever so slightly. She turned away, forcing herself to focus on the mission, but his gaze lingered in her mind. She had seen many humans before, studied them endlessly, but never like this. Never had a single look made her feel alive. The day passed in a blur of meetings and formalities. Kalira observed the humans closely, noting their habits, their social interactions, and the subtle signals they sent without words. All the while, the memory of the man with dark hair and thoughtful eyes lingered. By evening, the transport shuttle was ready to take her back to Lithuria. Kalira walked back across the crowded port, but her thoughts were not on the mission. They were on him, on the human who had looked at her as if she were more than an alien visitor. She paused at the boarding ramp and glanced back. He was still there, watching her, though he did not move. Their eyes met again, and this time, Kalira felt a pull that she could neither resist nor understand. Her body froze for a moment, her mind racing with questions she dared not ask. The shuttle door closed, separating them by a layer of metal and glass, and she felt the warmth drain from her chest. Her fingers tightened around the handrail as the engines roared to life, lifting her away from the human world and back toward the cold discipline of Lithuria. Yet, even as the stars returned around her, she could not forget him. Back on Lithuria, Kalira's quarters felt emptier than usual. The walls, which had always seemed neutral and orderly, now felt like a cage. She paced back and forth, replaying the moment again and again in her mind. She had been trained to ignore distractions, but he had distracted her in a way no one else ever had. She pulled out her personal log, a small device she used to record her observations. Normally, it contained only notes on human behavior and galactic phenomena, but tonight it held something different. There is a human, and I do not understand the feeling he caused. My logic cannot process it. It is not fear, nor curiosity, nor anger. It is something else, something I do not have a name for. I must observe further. Kalira paused, staring at the glowing text. The words themselves seemed to tremble with something unfamiliar. She knew that if anyone else read this log, they would consider her reckless. Emotions were dangerous for Lithurians. They could cloud judgment, weaken resolve, and lead to errors in judgment. But she could not help it. That night, sleep eluded her. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, and thought of his eyes, the way they had seemed to look directly into her mind without even trying. She had studied humans for years, yet she had never imagined that one could affect her so deeply with just a look. In the following days, Kalira returned to her studies with mechanical precision, but her thoughts were always elsewhere. She found herself scanning messages and transmissions from the human colony, searching for any trace of him. Each report, each observation made her chest tight. She had never experienced longing before, but now it consumed her, quiet and persistent. One evening, as she observed the stars from her deck once more, a small alert blinked on her console. A private transmission from the human colony had arrived. Kalira's pulse quickened, and she opened the message carefully. It was him. The message contained nothing more than a few words, simple and direct. But her heart, or whatever part of her that was awakening, refused to obey. For the first time in her life, Kalira felt a choice beyond duty. She could follow her training and forget him, or she could allow herself to wonder, to feel. The stars outside seemed to shimmer more brightly as she stared at the message. A single human look had changed everything. She did not know why or how, but something inside her had shifted irreversibly. Kalira did not sleep that night. She did not eat. She did not think of logic or duty. She thought only of him, of his eyes, of the warmth she had never known. And somewhere far across the galaxy, Irian, the human who had looked at her, sat at his own console, staring at the stars and wondering if the alien girl with violet eyes would ever look at him again. Neither knew it yet, but a bond had formed, delicate and fragile, stronger than any law, any rule, any barrier. It was the kind of bond that could defy reason, that could change the course of lives, even civilizations. Kalira whispered softly to herself, almost as if speaking it aloud could make it real. And as the Lithurian shuttle glided silently through the void, Kalira's heart, once steady and controlled, beat with a wild, unfamiliar cry. The shuttle descended slowly toward the human colony, its engines humming quietly against the vast blackness of space. Kalira's heart raced faster than any Lithurian calculation could explain. Every moment, every vibration of the ship reminded her that she was stepping into the unknown, into a world she had only observed from afar. The human colony stretched below her like a miniature city alive with energy. Lights glimmered along the towers, and hover vehicles moved smoothly across elevated platforms. The scent of warmth and life reached her through the air filters of the shuttle, carrying a strange comfort that contrasted with the cold sterility of Lithuria. Kalira took a deep breath. She had followed Irian's guidance, memorized the layout of the colony, and planned every step to avoid attention. Every decision was a balance between curiosity and caution. One wrong move could expose her to the Lithurian Council or endanger her mission entirely. And yet, she could not stop thinking about him. The shuttle doors hissed open and Kalira stepped onto the landing platform. The human air, soft and alive, brushed against her skin. Her violet eyes scanned the crowd immediately, instinctively searching for the one face she could never forget. There he was. Irian stood near a console, his back straight, fingers moving over the controls as he worked. He had dark hair that fell into his eyes, and his posture carried a calm confidence she had not noticed in the message exchanges. But it was his gaze, sharp and observant, that drew her in. He was aware of her presence before she even spoke, his dark eyes locking onto hers with unmistakable recognition. Kalira froze for a moment. Every logical part of her mind screamed to retreat, to observe from a distance, to avoid danger. But her heart, her newly awakened, forbidden heart, pushed her forward. She took a step, then another, until the distance between them narrowed. Irian's lips curved into a small, cautious smile. "Kalira," he said softly, his voice a sound she had imagined countless times but never heard in reality. "You came. If anyone finds out, it could cause problems." Kalira felt the warmth rising in her chest, spreading through her body in waves she could neither name nor control. Irian extended a hand, tentative but steady. "Then let's be careful, but let's also be honest with each other." Every calculated thought, every lesson in logic, seemed distant compared to the connection she felt in this single touch. They walked together through the colony, careful to avoid attention, yet every step brought them closer, not just physically, but emotionally. Irian pointed out buildings, hover vehicles, and observatories. Kalira listened, fascinated not just by the technology, but by the way he explained everything with warmth, patience, and humor. "Humans are messy," Kalira said finally, a small smile breaking her composed exterior. "But there is beauty in it, in your chaos. You might find our world messy, but it has its own order hidden in plain sight. And sometimes they lead us to places we never imagined, to people we never thought we would meet. His eyes held her steadily, and Kalira felt herself drawn deeper into him, into the human warmth that both frightened and fascinated her. As they walked, Kalira noticed subtle signs of human life, friends talking, children laughing, vendors calling out. She realized that she had only observed humans from a distance, studied their behaviors, but never truly seen them. And now, seeing them through Irian's presence, through the lens of someone who belonged to this world, everything felt alive. Everything felt meaningful. But danger lingered, silent and inevitable. Kalira could feel the pull of Lithurian law, the cold discipline that demanded obedience. She had risked everything to be here, and yet she could not turn back now. The warmth of human connection, the pull of forbidden curiosity, had claimed her. Irian led her to a quiet observatory atop one of the colony's tallest towers. The view stretched across the horizon, stars meeting the glow of the colony below. Kalira gasped softly. Even she, trained to admire precision and form, could not have expected such beauty. "It is breathtaking," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Irian stepped closer, his presence comforting yet electric. "It is," he agreed. But not as breathtaking as this moment. His hand hovered near hers, fingers almost touching. The air between them seemed to hum with tension, anticipation, and unspoken longing. Kalira felt a shiver run through her. The warmth inside her rose again, stronger this time, almost overwhelming. Her mind, trained for logic and calculation, faltered. She had never known that a single human being could affect her so profoundly, could make her feel so alive, so vulnerable, and so drawn. I do not know if I am ready," she admitted softly, eyes downcast. For everything." "That is enough." The two of them stood together, hands lightly touching, eyes meeting, and Kalira realized something that both frightened and thrilled her. She was beginning to feel things she had never felt before. Longing, curiosity, fear, hope, emotions she had studied but never truly understood. And yet in Irian's presence they made sense. For the first time she did not think about logic. She did not think about rules. She thought only of him and of the strange, powerful pull that had drawn her across the galaxy to be here. Suddenly, a soft alarm echoed in the observatory, cutting through the quiet. Kalira's violet eyes widened. The colony security systems were detecting anomalies. She realized with a shock that her presence might have been discovered. Irian's gaze met hers, concern flickering in his dark eyes. "Kalira, are you Lithurian?" Irian's hand tightened around hers. "Then we must move carefully." As they slipped into the shadows of the observatory, avoiding detection, Kalira realized that the danger only made their connection stronger. Each risk, each forbidden step, tied them closer together. The warmth in her chest, once tentative and cautious, now burned brighter, urging her forward, daring her to embrace the unknown. For the first time in her life, Kalira understood that the universe was not only a place of rules and calculations. It was a place of choices, of risks, and of connections that could defy logic, reason, and even fear. And as she and Irian navigated the quiet corridors of the colony, hidden from prying eyes, she knew one truth that terrified her and exhilarated her at the same time. She could never go back to the way things were. The pull that had begun with a single human look had grown into something unstoppable, something dangerous, something beautiful, and it was only the beginning, THM. One human look had changed everything, and she could never go back to the way things were. Kalira's heart still raced from the encounter with Irian. She had spent weeks navigating the human colony in secret, each step a balance between curiosity and danger. Yet, for the first time in her life, she felt alive in a way Lithuria had never allowed her to experience. The shuttle that had brought her to the colony hummed quietly as she returned to a small, hidden Lithurian observation outpost nearby. Her violet eyes scanned the stars, yet the warmth in her chest would not fade. The emotions that had been dormant for so long pulsed through her, longing, fear, excitement, and something deeper, something she dared not name. Her fingers hovered over the console, but her thoughts were far away. She had studied humans for years, learned their behaviors and reactions, yet she had never truly understood emotion until now. She had felt curiosity, admiration, even cautious joy. But these feelings were no longer gentle ripples. They were a storm inside her, wild, unpredictable, and utterly intoxicating. As she stared at the stars, a sudden alert blinked across her console. A Lithurian monitoring fleet had detected her shuttle near the human colony. Panic rose in her chest. She knew the consequences of being discovered. Lithurians who broke protocol, who allowed emotions to interfere with duty, faced exile, or worse. Kalira pressed her fingers to her lips, thinking quickly. She could hide her location temporarily, but only for so long. Her mind raced with calculations, escape routes, and potential explanations. Every option carried risk, and yet, even with the danger pressing close, she did not regret coming here, because Irian had changed her. He had shown her warmth, laughter, and connection in a way no Lithurian had ever offered. He had looked at her not as an alien, not as a curiosity, but as someone who could feel, who could think, who could matter. And that truth, dangerous and fragile, had awakened something inside her that she could never unsee. Back in the colony, Irian waited anxiously. He had sensed that Kalira's energy had shifted, that her presence was no longer merely distant. Something powerful, something almost tangible, hummed in the air when she was near. He did not fully understand it, but he felt it, and it frightened and thrilled him in equal measure. Kalira entered the observatory quietly, her heart pounding in her chest. Irian turned immediately, his eyes locking on hers. "You're here," he whispered, as if the sound of her voice could anchor him. "I am," she said softly, her fingers brushing against the railing for balance. "But we are not safe. They know I am here." "But Kalira, I want you to know, I do not care about the rules. I care about you." She had studied humans, studied their attachments, studied their gestures, but nothing in any record could prepare her for the feeling of someone truly wanting her, someone willing to risk themselves for her. Kalira closed her eyes briefly, taking a deep breath. I do not know what to do with these feelings. I have never felt anything like this before. I am afraid." Fear is natural, but it does not mean you are weak. Sometimes fear means you are on the edge of something important. The very emotions Lithurians taught her to suppress had awakened something inside her, something raw, unbridled, and capable of changing her forever. And yet, that power carried a curse. Over the next days, Kalira began to notice unusual changes in her body and mind. Her emotions, once barely noticeable, now surged like waves. Simple acts, a smile from Irian, the sight of a human child laughing, a star shining brightly, sent jolts through her almost like energy. Her hands would tremble, her chest would ache, and sometimes a faint glow pulsed around her fingertips, something she could not control. She realized with growing dread that her awakening feelings were more than emotional. They were physical. Lithurian genetic codes were designed to suppress emotion precisely because it could be dangerous. She had broken the balance. Her connection to Irian, her defiance of protocol, had unlocked something ancient and volatile inside her. Irian noticed it too. "Kalira, are you all right?" he asked one evening, eyes filled with concern. "You seem different." She had never known anyone who would stand beside her, knowing the risk, yet still choosing to remain. The thought filled her with warmth, courage, and an ache she could not define. Yet danger loomed closer every day. Lithurian scouts had begun patrolling near the colony, scanning for anomalies. Kalira knew it was only a matter of time before someone discovered her. The very feelings that had awakened her power now made her vulnerable. One evening, as she and Irian stargazed from the observatory, a sudden pulse of energy erupted from Kalira's hands. It was faint but unmistakable, a shimmer of violet light flickering in rhythm with her heartbeat. Irian gasped softly, stepping closer. "Kalira, what is happening?" he asked, voice tight with concern. She looked down at her hands, eyes wide. I do not know. I think my emotions, they are alive, and they are dangerous. You are to return immediately." But she also realized that her feelings, the very emotions Lithurians feared, had given her strength. The pulse of energy that had startled Irian surged again, stronger this time, spreading through her body. She felt light, almost weightless, as if the universe itself responded to her heart. "Now!" Irian shouted, grabbing her hand. Kalira felt the rush of energy course through her as they sprinted toward a hidden exit. The enforcers shouted behind them, their precise steps echoing through the corridors, but Kalira no longer felt fear in the same way. She felt determination, courage, and a strange, unstoppable power. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, a vast ocean of possibilities. Irian piloted a small hovercraft, and Kalira climbed beside him, her pulse still thrumming with the energy inside her. "Hold on," he said, voice firm but gentle. "We'll get through this." And as they soared away from the colony, leaving enforcers and rules behind, Kalira felt a deep, undeniable truth settle in her chest. The warmth inside her chest, once a fragile spark, now burned brightly, guiding her forward into the unknown. They had crossed worlds, defied rules, and awakened something ancient within Kalira. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and filled with challenges, but for the first time she felt truly alive. And she knew one thing with perfect clarity: she would never deny these emotions again. No matter the cost, the stars stretched endlessly across the void, brilliant points of light against infinite darkness. Kalira gripped Irian's hand tightly as the small hovercraft navigated through asteroid fields and abandoned space debris. Every pulse of the ship's engine reverberated through her body, but the warmth in her chest, the energy that had awakened weeks ago, was stronger than ever. She stole a glance at him. Irian's dark eyes were fixed ahead, sharp and alert, but softened by a rare vulnerability she had only seen in private moments. For all his courage, she knew he felt the weight of the journey as deeply as she did. Together they had crossed worlds, defied the rules of Lithuria, and embraced feelings that had once been forbidden. Kalira's chest still pulsed with energy. She could feel it flowing in rhythm with her heartbeat, her emotions no longer tentative or fragile. They were alive, powerful, and tethered to him. Each thought of him, each brush of their hands made the light surge brighter within her. Yet danger lingered. Lithurian enforcers pursued them across the stars, and even in the vastness of space, Kalira knew they were relentless. Their disciplined precision and detection methods were unmatched. One mistake could mean capture. One wrong move could erase her entirely from the galaxy. Irian's voice cut through the quiet hum of the ship. "Kalira, can you control it?" "It is me." The Lithurian enforcers were closing in. Sensors picked up multiple ships on an intercept course. Kalira's mind raced. Logic dictated evasion tactics, but her emotions added another layer, a sharp awareness of danger, a clarity born not of cold calculation but of life itself. "Irian, we cannot outrun them forever," she said, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her chest. "I know," he replied, "but we can be smarter. Follow my lead, trust me." Irian glanced at her, astonished. "Kalira, how are you doing this?" Lithurian ships moved with mechanical precision, cutting off possible exits. Kalira's energy surged, sharper, brighter, almost tangible. She realized that her feelings, love, trust, longing were no longer a weakness. They were a strength, a source of power that could bend the rules of space itself. "Hold on," she shouted, focusing every pulse of her heart into guiding the craft. The energy flowed around the ship, a violet glow rippling outward, momentarily disrupting sensors and shields of the pursuing Lithurian ships. Irian gripped the controls, following her lead. "Incredible, I have never seen anything like this." She had always been taught that emotions were dangerous, but now she understood that the right emotion, the right bond, could be a force stronger than any weapon or rule. After hours of tense maneuvering, they reached a remote, uncharted sector of space. Asteroids hung like silent sentinels, offering cover. Kalira and Irian took a moment to catch their breath. Kalira's chest still glowed faintly with energy. She looked at Irian, eyes shimmering. "I never imagined that a single look, a single moment could change everything, but it did. You changed me. You've shown me that connection. That feeling can be stronger than anything else in the galaxy." And then, as if the universe itself acknowledged their union, a faint pulse of light spread across the asteroids, gentle and serene. Kalira closed her eyes, feeling it resonate with her energy. She realized that love, connection, and courage were not weaknesses. They were forces of creation, forces that could reshape destinies. But the galaxy had not yet released its challenges. A Lithurian warship appeared at the edge of the asteroid field, engines glowing menacingly. Its sensors locked onto their craft. Kalira's pulse quickened. This time there was no room for error. "Irian, we cannot fight them directly," she said, voice trembling. "We need a plan, and we need to act now. We've come this far, we can't turn back now." "Kalira, I trust you," Irian said softly. "Lead the way." But the danger had passed for now. Kalira exhaled deeply. "We did it," she whispered, her eyes shining, "together." Irian learned from her, helping her understand that connection, trust, and emotion were not weaknesses, they were strengths. Kalira felt a transformation within herself. She was no longer a Lithurian constrained by rules and logic. She was a being capable of love, courage, and power beyond measure. And in Irian's presence, every fear and doubt seemed smaller, every risk more bearable. Together, they built a small sanctuary aboard an abandoned satellite station, a place where Lithurian rules could not reach them and human curiosity would not expose them. The stars stretched endlessly outside, a reminder that the universe was vast, mysterious, and theirs to explore. One evening, as they watched the stars flicker across the void, Irian spoke softly. Kalira, what we've done, it changes everything. Not just for us, but for the universe. You've shown me that connection, that feeling, can be stronger than rules, stronger than fear. That it is possible to live fully, without fear, even in a galaxy that tells us otherwise. She had chosen love, connection, and courage over fear, duty, and control. And in that moment, as the stars twinkled endlessly around them, Kalira realized that a single human look had changed everything. And now, with Irian by her side, the universe itself seemed to bend to the power of their bond. They were unstoppable. The alien girl never expected a single human look to change everything. HFY Sci-Fi Story.